Hey guys, Wrangler. Let's get started. So it's no surprise we work on a lot of Jeep Wranglers. You guys love to point that out. F-150s and now Camaros. We're doing a decent amount of Camaros lately, so yay, we added a third. This Jeep Wrangler, nothing special going on here. I mean, yeah, for him it is. But what I really wanted to talk about was budget. Budget for the system that you're planning on building. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about budget is because you have to have a reasonable expectation of what your budget is gonna allow for you. You know, if you come in with 500 bucks and you're like, I want this, this, and this, and this, and of course, you know, a nice salesman like Paul is going to try to get you everything that you asked for that 500 bucks, you have to have a reasonable expectation of the quality of the product you're going to get. So for example, if you have 500 bucks and you want an amp, you want a sub, you want a radio, you want some dash speakers or some door speakers, you're not going to get the most amazing stuff out there. Now don't get me wrong, everyone has to have a budget for their system. I mean, you just don't walk in and be like, hey, I want the Audison Voce, let's go. I mean, some people do, but the reality is that doesn't happen all that often. Now, whether your budget is high or low, it's that reasonable expectation part that is the most important thing. Because this is a world where, unbeknownst to a lot of people, you actually get what you pay for. On a side note, I love working on cars, and I've already been worked on, and in this one in particular, the plug is cut in not one, but two places. Check this out. We have all these cuts here, and we have more cuts here. And reasonable expectation, as you can see, goes both ways, both from the installer's side and the store, as well as the consumer. So we reasonably had an expectation that all we were gonna have to do is unplug this radio. It's not the case. Don't use wire nuts, please. Please stop using them. So back to reasonable expectation and budget. The reason why I'm going down this path today is this Jeep right here. He has a budget, and it was hammered into my head because there was aspects of this install I didn't agree with, and it was budget. We have budget. Budget.
And did I mention there's a budget?
Budget. Oh yeah. The budget. And what that meant, what we're doing in this is budget orientated. Now the result will be fine, okay? It's gonna sound good. We're putting products in it that we know will work with what he's trying to do. My complaint on it was the fact that it's a Jeep with a soft top. It should have something that can handle a Jeep with a soft top. However, the budget didn't allow that type of equipment. So now you have to think of what the reasonable expectation would be. Sound is one aspect of reasonable expectation. In this case, it's gonna sound fine. He's putting a Rockford P310 in it. It's gonna have plenty of bass for this Jeep. The expectation of it surviving, that's a whole nother ball game. I, of course, was on the side of, you do realize it's an open air Jeep and you're putting a non-rhino lined box in it. Now, don't get me wrong, I realize rhino lining isn't 100%, but it's better than just straight up wood and carpet. The money that you're spending has to achieve your expectation, or you have to move your expectation down to what your money can achieve. I guess is the long and short of this. No matter what you plan on buying, be realistic to yourself. Ask all the questions you need as far as, okay, so if I have X amount of money, what can I get? Cool. What can I expect from that? Because, you know, there's been plenty of times someone comes in with a certain amount of money and they're like, I want all this stuff, and you're like, okay, that's cool, I'll price you out for that, but in the end, what is your expectation of this? How do you expect it to sound? If you just think that certain amount of money is going to get you your dream system, it's not going to happen. And that's when you try to walk somebody into, maybe we should take this into a two-part system where, you know, it's like we'll do this aspect of it today and then we can come back and do another aspect of it later. Some people are down for that, other people just, you know, they just want to go for it. And it's like, okay, that's fine, you can go for it. Just realize that I'm not kidding when I tell you these are the results you're gonna get. And sometimes it's fine and people are cool and they're like, yeah, it sounds okay, after you told me about it, you know, that's what I expected. And other times people are, you know, disappointed because they somehow thought I was lying to them, trying to get more money out of them. And I'm not the sales guy, so what do I care? I just want to know what you're expecting so that I can know if I can hit that mark or not. Now, I know I might be taking the long way around this topic and I apologize. It's not my intention. It's just, this is one of those topics that comes up quite frequently. In the show, you guys ask questions like, why didn't they use sound deadening, or why didn't they use fast strings, or why did you make that guy buy a new wiring kit, or why, you know, there's a lot of whys. So when you're doing this, when you've decided to build your dream system, have the right expectation. Ask the right questions. Ask a ton of questions. Ask the wrong question. The other thing that you have to keep in mind is time. How much, one of the best questions I ask people when I'm designing them a system is, are you gonna keep this car forever? Are you keeping it for a year, 3 years? What are you doing? What is it worth to you to have the right system the first time and not the second time? You know, a lot of guys like this Jeep, I'm pretty sure this guy loves this Jeep. This is his Jeep. He's gonna keep this thing, gonna give it to his kids. That's how Jeep guys are. Would it be better to wait and do part today, part 6 months from now? Are we just that antsy? These are all the things you have to figure out once you've decided your course, and then have the expectation to back it up. Of, okay, now I know, like we explained to him about the box and he was fine with it, something he's got to work with. Anyways, this might have been weird, this might have rambled, I apologize, sometimes these things happen up there. Let's get back to the Jeep. All right, so what are we doing in this Jeep? What we're doing is we're gonna install this right here. We talked about this before. It's a KTP 445U. This is the universal Alpine amp. This is a brick amp. We've talked about these before. He has an Alpine radio, that's what we're dealing with here. So we could have done the 445A, which is the Alpine. Now what this allows us to do is you just unplug this from the radio, plug this into the amp, and then there's a harness that you plug into here and go into the radio. And the reason why we're not doing that is because his radio, this guy right here, it doesn't have any high pass filter built into it. What that means is that the 4x6s here in the dash and the 5 1/4s up here in the sound bar, now that we're adding a subwoofer and more power, we're not gonna be able to get the volume we need before these things start to just die out. So we need some form of a bass blocker on them. We could do capacitors, sure, but at the end of the day, if we just go with this particular amplifier, it has a crossover in it, which is going to work a lot better than just a generic bass blocker. What we're doing first is, of course, we're going to fix the harness, get that all straightened out. Fernando's working on the box. I think he's ready to put it in the car. I'm going to insert where he's wiring it up right here. All right, so that's it wired up. Let's go check it out in the car. So here we go, we have it all wired up. It fits nice behind this seat. If this was a hard top, it would be awesome. We have the ground wire sticking out here, and then we went ahead, because it's a Jeep, and this is an older Jeep, there's really any zip tied, bundled wire anywhere. So we went ahead and covered the whole wire with the Temflex so that we can zip tie it in or up, and if it is exposed, it at least looks like this, which is a heck of a lot nicer than just some blue power wire and RCA draped through a car, right? He's gonna go ahead and run that to the front. I'm gonna go ahead and fix this harness and we'll get it all back into the car somehow. In the dash of the Jeep, you have this little control center right here. He has nothing actually in this. What we did is we trimmed a little bit of space out here with the trimmer. And what that allowed us to do is we can then take this amplifier and mount it. We can screw it in. You have some screws right here. There's a screw we can actually use here, and then we'll put another screw in on this side. It'll be nice and tucked out of the way. We won't have to worry about it getting wet. Now the other nice thing about this amplifier is that it has these gain controls. And I know what you're thinking. What amp doesn't have gain controls? Well, there's another company that starts with, well, Pioneer, and they make a version of this, and guess what it doesn't have? Gain controls. I'm guessing when they were copying the amplifier, they grabbed the Alpine version of it, and they were like, it has no gain controls. We don't need to make gain controls, as opposed to grabbing the universal. I don't know how you do that, but that's what they did. But it is cheaper. So in the box, you get the main powering harness, which is here, and it is, I'd say about 3 feet long. And then you have this guy right here. Now this harness is a universal harness. What I mean by that is it has the RCAs on it. So like in this channel, this deck does have RC outputs. How it doesn't have a crossover is beyond me, but I've downloaded the owner's manual and it's nowhere in sight. And it's made in 2005, so it's plausible, and it's before Tune It, so we know it's not in the Tune It app. So in this case, we can run RCAs out of here into the radio. If we were just gonna do high level, the idea is you cut these off off, and then you'll just hook your speaker wires up to it that way. So it will do high level or low level input. As far as the crossover and everything goes, is on the bottom of the amplifier here, this little door pops off and there's a dip switch bank. And this allows you to do front high pass crossover. So you have off 60, 80, 120, and then you have rear, the same. And then you have your choice of inputs. So if you're using this with just 2 inputs, you can flick 2-channel input. If you're gonna use it with 4 inputs, you can flick 4-channel inputs. So there's a lot of things you can do with this. You can also bridge it and turn it into a really powerful 2-channel amplifier, which actually is really nice. Now, as far as power consumption goes, this has a 15 amp fuse on it, which I'm sure is way bigger than it needs to be. The power wire for it is just a standard radio harness size power wire. The idea behind this is that you literally just plug this in and then plug, so you don't even have to run a power wire to this if you don't want to. The nice thing about the Jeep is that the Jeeps do run dual power wires behind the radio, so there's plenty of current coming in to actually power this and the radio. In some cars, we do run a power wire off to the battery. It's better to be safe than sorry, and this guy, we're really not going to worry about that. We've done plenty of them in these. So we have our harness all made up. This is going to be coming from the radio to the amplifier. This is going to come out of the amplifier into the harness of the car, and of course the radio power plug is here. So that is all set. Now what we want to do is go to the back of the amplifier and peel off this little guy here. And we want to make sure that it is set for 4-channel and that we're using RCA input. So we'll start here. Dip switch number 6 needs to be up. Dip switch number 5 needs to be down. And then we want to turn on the 120 hertz crossover, because we have 4x6s and 5 1/4s, so they don't need any bass at all. So we'll go ahead and turn all 1 through 4 down. So there we go. Now we can go ahead and get this into the car, but before we do that, we have to fix this a little bit. So unfortunately, he doesn't have the trim ring, and I don't have an extra one. We're just going to make do with what we have here and get this mounted in as well as we can. All right, it's a little better. So we got lucky on the harness. Apparently at some point someone had, instead of adding in a harness, they just stripped the wire back and twisted wires on. So nothing was actually cut. All we had to do was replace it all. We used the high temp Tessa tape, retaped everything twice, so now it's all good to go. And then the second cut that I actually thought was a cut, because there was so much random stuff, that wasn't actually a cut. I got a little excited there, my bad. But now we can go ahead and get the amp and radio all tucked up in. We have the RCA for the rear here. We have our turn on wire. So let's go ahead and get this stuff mounted. Alright, so we're done with the radio. Let's take a look at the back here real quick before Fernando buttons this up. Woofer's all in. Now, we've showed this before, but the really cool thing about this woofer is that all you have to do is unplug these, and this whole thing will come right out. So if he does need this space, it's easily removable at this point. You guys saw him mount the fuse holder, bolted in place right here, so it's nice and secure. Now, normally, as you guys know, we like to tune our systems with specific songs. However, this is just a CD player. This has no aux, it has no USB. It's from 2005. The fact that it's still playing is even a miracle. He listens to apparently Led Zeppelin. That's what the disc he had in, so we tuned it to his music, which is at the end of the day what you try to go for anyways. That's why we listen to a variety of music. Led Zeppelin is very specific though. Did you like the way it sounded good? Or
Definitely is good.
so for the budget he has, hopefully this will give him the desired results that he wanted. It is louder. It sounds a heck of a lot better. Hope it puts a smile on his face. I can't do that. I can't bend my pinky, so there we go. All right, guys, on to the next one.